And we are recording. Okay, so Thursday morning, thank you so much for joining me. For those of you that looked at yesterday as hump day, that's okay. Let's just look at it as a step to a larger funnel coming that ends on Friday. Call it up day, call it whatever you'd like. Remember, we'll just change what that means. Right, humps, usually you go up and you start going down. Again, I like you to look at it this way. Work as hard as you can on Monday. Okay, just as hard as you absolutely can. But always look at that as a small end of your funnel, that by Friday you're going to be working 3, 4, 5 times as hard. Because remember, on Fridays, which is tomorrow, you have to work twice as hard because everyone else is working half as hard to get the same results, right? But if you do it, it's important because that's a percentage of your week, 20%. It's a lot. So what are we talking about? We've been talking the last few days about discovering your core desires. And you guys have even kind of gone on a little journey with me while I've kind of looked through my own personal psychology to kind of see where mine are at. So I'm going to talk a little bit about something fun. I actually started mentioning this yesterday, and I decided to grab my book on quantum mechanics so I could remember exactly how this worked. Actually, not quite done reading this book either. I usually read a few different subjects at a time. But Bruce Rosenblum and Fred Kunter wrote a book called Quantum Enigma. Very, very good book, and this is where I grabbed this from. So this is something obviously most physicists learn probably in all of their classes. I'm a jack physicist. How's that? I love learning about quantum mechanics and everything I can, really, but I couldn't sit down and really do a physics problem. So let's talk about this reductionist theory that I was kind of bringing up to you guys yesterday, because it really helps in discovering what your core desires really are. Because as I explained, once you know what your core desires are, your conquering force to move towards those core desires is automatic. It's one of the ways you know that it's there. Okay, so let's talk about this. Use science to uncover your core desires. Now, again, in Jack's book, he has methods that kind of continue to go through the process of asking why. Right? You get to a point where you believe that you've reached what you consider your core desire, but there's a way to kind of get deeper. So I just had a little bit of fun with this because this really seemed relative to me. So I'm giving it to you as a way metaphorically to start utilizing it to figure out what your core desires are, because I've decided that it's extremely important that we all do this. Okay, so use science to uncover your core desires. So in the reductionist theory, it goes from psychology to biology to chemistry to physics. Okay, they consider physics to be the empirical facts. Right? The psychology side, if a lot of you know, psychology is considered a soft science. So it is most definitely a science. Obviously, they've most definitely proven that we have an unconscious and a subconscious and a conscious mind. It's that in the methods of science, psychology is considered the first ring because you must first imagine a theory to exist, right? So in other words, when Einstein came up with the theory of relativity, he had to first imagine somehow that there was a possibility that it existed, right? So it first exists within our psychology or within our thoughts, right? And then, of course, from that perspective, you've got the reductionist theory that goes from psychology to biology to chemistry to physics, okay? And they use this reductionist theory in order to prove out facts. In other words, you can go the other direction as well. You've got physics theory, which is the empirical facts, and you can move up into chemistry and from there up into biology and psychology. For example, one of the things I've been studying as well recently that I find just absolutely fascinating is biophotons and how our body is actually held together to a degree. And I don't want to say it's held together, but its functionality, all right, the very interactions of our cellular level. Okay, we have over 100,000 chemical reactions in each cell every second. And they've discovered that the only thing that can even really give the information for the cell from the point of DNA is light. And it's biophotons that do this. It's a fascinating subject. Don't need to get into it. But they had to even break it down into physics to understand what? The chemistry of the cell, right? And from there, of course, that would be the chemistry of that cell would be in relative to the biology of the body. Okay, so anyways, to give you an idea of how this theory can work in discovering your core desires, I'm going to use one that you guys have heard me talk about over the last couple of days. In fact, I kind of looked at it one way and then kind of discovered a little bit more about what it is, and honestly, that's actually helped me a tremendous amount. So we were talking about, and I'll tell you, it also helps in these two theories, and I'll explain that as well. So working out every day. Okay, working out every day is a goal. That's a goal. And Jack talks about how core desires are not goals. Okay, I did talk earlier in another mindset about how the strategy and direction is extremely important. Okay, so there are, to a substance, goals within that in order to achieve what your core desires are. But a goal itself in specific that's outside of that strategy is not of much use. Okay, so to give you an idea here, we've got working out every day. It's a goal. Well, I do, and you know, I've been going harder and harder every day since I've been reading this book and talking to you guys about this stuff. This morning I went as hard as I could. Okay, so that's like, it's one of my goals, right, is working out every day. Well, I do it, and at first, if you remember, I was like, because I want to be an athlete, because that is true. I do want to be an athlete. For all the reasons of being 40 years old and having that mentality that I'm athletic, I'm an athlete, it's going to help me stay younger and healthier. Right? Well, that doesn't affect enough of my life, and that's what I'm getting around to. Like when you're looking at the reductionist theory, physics is the foundation of all science in almost every way, because almost everything from whatever scientific point of view breaks down to physics. Okay, it just does. So thinking about it that way, yeah, I want to be athletic, and that helps me when I'm working out and I'm having a hard time. I'm like, well, if I'm going to be strong like an athlete, I got to keep pushing, got to push harder, right? Well, that really comes down to the fact I realized that what I'm really trying to do is reverse poor self-image. And again, I've got tremendous confidence in so many areas of my life, but I've had kind of a poor body image for part of my life, especially when I was younger. And, you know, even at 40 years old, sometimes I still struggle with that. And so really that is getting much closer to what that core desire really is I want to reverse that poor self-image, right? And I want to do it in a way that actually makes me feel confident about it, which you go back up the scale to being an athlete and working out every day, you see how those are related, but that's still not that core desire. What it really comes down to is, why do I want to reverse poor self-image? Again, I'm asking myself, why? Just like the psychology of a thought breaks down to biology, the chemistry to physics, right? And this reductionist philosophy here, okay? Why do I want to reverse poor self-image? It's because I need impeccable self-confidence. I do. In the things that I'm doing, I have to hold my ground. I've got a lot of confidence in so many areas in my life. I really do. Okay, in all respects, I work hard to keep that up and to study and to understand and to do the things that are necessary to really be able to hold my ground as much as I can and to understand people as well as I can, to be as humble as I can. A lot of that self-confidence comes from so many areas, and that was the one area that was kind of weak for me, right? Reversing poor self-image. So the combination between that and then impeccable self-confidence, it's really one of my core desires, okay? That's the biggest reason. So when I go from that all the way back out and I'm working out, okay, it's not about working out or not working out. It's about something that affects every point of my life. Being self-confident at all times and having that energy and that force and that mind and that drive is so critical to me. Okay, it is a core desire of mine to have impeccable self-confidence because I need it. I need it in everything that I do. And one thing I've noticed about core desires, at least from my perspective, is they tend to affect a much larger number of things. Okay? For example, I could break down my core desire of wanting to have a better family life, to getting better communication with my children, okay, to being able to be better at one-on-one with my son. And if you really get down to that core desire with that communication between